Well, good morning, everyone, or maybe good afternoon or evening, depending where you're joining us from. Welcome here to the Launchpad and our last minute live coverage of the launch of BROR from Kiruna, Sweden. Today we are waiting for a launch of a sounding rocket. We know a little bit about today's mission, so we're going to run you through that, of course. We do not have a mission briefing for today's mission, as it is a sounding rocket, so it works a little bit differently with how much information that we get to know, but we're glad to have you here. We wanted to make sure that we could bring this to you. You are looking at two live views from Kiruna, Sweden, where they are counting down now just over 9 minutes and counting until the targeted launch of BROR. SSC and a group of Aurora scientists from the Swedish Institute of Space Physics are preparing to launch a sounding rocket from the Aurora to spaceport to create a colorful cloud of Aurora studies. The first attempt was conducted on March 12th, but we're seeing here an attempt on March 16th. The research rocket, with an aim of studying conditions in near-Earth space with an onboard experiment that will create unusual and beautiful light phenomena. Now, it's unlikely that we will get to actually see that light phenomena here today. We'll likely just see a rocket streak out of view, and that'll be the view, but we wanted to make sure we still brought that to you, because who doesn't love to see a rocket launch? In a quote from one of the IRF scientists on the principal investigation team, to succeed with the scientific experiment, IRF will use techniques similar to that found in fireworks, which the sounding rocket will activate when it's at an altitude of over 100 kilometers. The activation will occur in the space closest to the Earth, in the ionosphere, creating a beautiful light phenomenon that will be studied with a unique network of advanced optical imaging stations in the Kiruna area. The data from these experiments will be used by the IRF scientists to study conditions in near-Earth space, which is an important piece of the Aurora research puzzle that can enable better forecasting of the sun's activities and how its solar wind of charged particles affects critical infrastructure here on Earth, but also in orbit with our satellites. So we're excited to see this launch happening here today. Things looking pretty good weather-wise, with the team preparing for launch now just right around 7.5 minutes. We did just get an update that they have actually entered into a hold at this point. So we're going to pause at that. They're holding T-minus 10 minutes, 23 seconds, and we are waiting for an update on if they will resume the count or not. Unlike many of the launches that we've seen before, where we have audio and video updates from their team, this is very much almost just watching their security cameras that they put out for us to get to see. So we don't get a ton of updates other than through their Twitter. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and bringing you updates from their Twitter as we do get them as we continue towards launch. But we did just enter a hold at T-minus 10 minutes, 23 seconds. Excited to see the Swedish Space Corporation getting ready to launch more. At T-minus 10 minutes to launch, they did release a weather balloon to measure the winds and are keeping an eye on that. And that was just a few minutes ago, and now we've entered that hold. So we are still waiting for an update on how that last wind weather balloon was looking. But things were looking good over the last hour. Clear skies, limited winds, which was what was required for today's flight. And we will see if they are going to be able to pick up the count and go for a launch here today. Aravel, Zach, can you be honest? The TOP team just hacked their security cameras, didn't you? No, we would never do that. No. We would never. But it's a very unique way of being able to see the view of the launches. We're glad to be able to bring these views here. We're hoping to head up to Esrange maybe sometime this year or early next year and actually give you guys a look around there. Hopefully, super excited to see this spaceport really going from not only sounding rockets, but if you joined us last year, we had a number of balloon launches from here. When balloons weren't as big of a topic. And they are now preparing for actually orbital launches from this spaceport as well. So we're excited to see that as they come into a kind of a next generation of their spaceport. Aaron's asking, can you explain what a sounding rocket is and how it's different from a regular rocket? So the biggest thing is sounding rockets are suborbital. So they are normally a lot smaller. If you look at the thumbnail of today's stream, you'd actually be able to see it's a much smaller rocket. And unfortunately, we just got the update that we didn't want to see right when we got ready to go live. The wind conditions are too high, and they have canceled today's launch attempt due to the winds. Darn it! We were so close. But so we'll follow along with the Swedish Space Corporation to see when their next launch attempt would be. But answering your question there, Aaron, they are a lot smaller rocket. We see them launch out of Wallops quite often. They are normally like a Black Brant one in the United States. They're very thin, small, cylindrical rockets, very long, normally all solid fuel. And that carries small payloads for small research missions like this. That's generally what it is. Peter Parker, how come wind and bad weather only seem to impact other launch companies and not name SpaceX? SpaceX's vehicle is so proven. It does have some higher conditions that it can launch in. It's also a much larger vehicle than this vehicle. You could fit this one most likely in like a number of these taken apart in SpaceX's fairing. You could fit a ton of them. So because it's a bigger rocket, it has less conditions that are impacting higher winds to actually affect it. If it's flying crew, then there are different conditions. And like if it's raining, we can't launch a Falcon 9 with crew. But if there's some slight rain with a normal Falcon 9, they can sometimes launch. So it's all watching it. Falcon 9 really has to do with a lot more like the lightning and the upper level winds when it's a lot lighter. But that is what happened. But unfortunately, we just had an update from the weather balloon launched at T-minus 10 minutes. We got to T-minus 10 minutes, 23 seconds. We entered a hold, and the wind conditions today at the Esrange spaceport are just too high for today's launch, so they have scrubbed today's attempt. Ian, the shortest stream. We might be there. We might end it before we get to that 10-minute mark. If you haven't yet, consider joining us over on Discord. We'll sometimes be hanging out in general. That's where our awesome space community hangs out and has watch parties and just hangs out as a community. And of course, make sure that you are following us over on Twitter for space news updates as they happen. And it was a launch day attempt, which means if you use promo code launch day on the shop, you can get 10% off of everything on the store there. But that's going to do it for probably our shortest stream in history. This is Zach from TLPHQ. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.